Hello and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast. I'm Ben, and I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor. As always, we're bringing you some of the latest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. This week, we're discussing the closure of the Pokemon trading card game online, some Pokemon VGC players getting disqualified from Nationals for using the move Metronome, and previously suspended Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Terra Raid events returning. But that's not all. After last week, where we hit our 1 year milestone, we've leveled up, evolved, if you will, like Pokemon. And each week, we'll be discussing a controversial hot take on Pokemon, starting this week with the question, is Generation 2 overrated? As always, you can jump to a topic using the timestamps in the description below. Conor, first and foremost, how are we this week?
I'm all right. I'm a little bit confused. I couldn't work out what was different about the intro, and I was like, why does this sound wrong? Why does something feel weird? It's because you took the Pokemon news and laughs along the way and put it further back.
Yeah, I've twisted a few things around. I want to get your name in there earlier, and then break down like then what we're doing, and then that ties in with the timestamps, and then we jump straight into the news. There's method behind the madness. It's going
not
to boost.
Just madness. Okay.
Well, that's not what the doctor says.
Doctors aren't allowed to use the word mad anymore.
No, that's not what they used. They used a really complicated word. Crazy-titis or something like that. I'm not
Crazy-titis.
It's crazy-titis. But how are we anyway?
Surviving, mate. Surviving. It's been a hell of a day, but we're doing all right.
Yeah, well, we're here now, Conor, and this is the part where like everything just uplifts, right?
Serene and grace takes over. Not serene grace, though.
Not serene grace, no. But our listeners know that like it's all just good news here. Everything's positive. Everything's happy.
Is it always good news? We are quite a negative podcast if our comments are to be believed.
No.
We all just hate Pokemon and just complain every week.
That's what we do apparently. But to be fair, when I was looking at the news of what we could discuss this week, the first two topics that just kept popping up were about issues with Pokemon Go.
Of course.
And I was just like, no, not touching that with a barge pole. Done it to death. But I will say one thing, like Niantic messed up on something and have like done a really good compensation for basically there was issues with the raids, and they've given everyone that carried out the raid a free pass and a free extra pass. So they've basically you're basically gaining extra pass for the issues. So maybe Niantic's finally listening and doing something good. And apparently they've also made improvements to remote battle passes as well. Like you now get a boost or something with them. So, but we're not discussing more about that because we're not a Pokemon Go podcast. We are going to, in fact, jump in with our first piece of news, which is that the Pokemon TCG Online is officially closed. It's done. It's had its time.
The client, that's the word I was looking for. Yep. I was like, the system, the game, the client is gone. PTCG Live is officially launching very soon. You can still
Thursday the 8th of June.
8th of June, there you go.
So tomorrow.
So very soon. Tomorrow for us. Yesterday, if you're listening to this on the day of release. So yes, very, very soon. We will get an official release. Is PTCG Live perfect? Nope. Sorry, it's still not, but that's what you got to use now. You can still transfer all your cards over from PTCGO for the foreseeable future, at least. But that's it. It's gone. It's over. It's been a long time.
So the original, so the Pokemon TCG Online was released in 2011, so it's 12 years-ish old, and it still blows my mind that it didn't really adapt or change a lot, but I'm hoping that this new live format is something that they build and develop over time, and as typical, the more people use it, the more likely they are to change things and
fingers
keep
crossed.
It fresh.
Fingers crossed the developers get given a bit of money and a bit of time to work on it and improve it.
He's hoping. I'm going to check it out at some point because I've got a load of Pokemon cards that I want to transfer over. Let's move on to the second piece of news. So last month we reported, or was it earlier on this month?
No, it was last month.
Last month, we reported on some issues with the Chestnut, Great Tusk, and Iron Treads raids. There was a bug that was causing people to lose out on rewards and also crashed the game.
Yeah, there was a reward that just came up as none.
None. Which
so you got the reward of none. And if you accepted it, your game died.
Yeah. They've now apparently fixed the issue because they are going to rerun the raids between the 16th and the 19th of June. Chestnut is a 7-star raid that will come with the Mightiest Mark and has the Rock Terror type. And the Great Tusk and Iron Treads are 5-star raids. And I believe the Terror types are just random.
They're random.
Yes.
They're random for that one.
But
you will only get Great Tusk and Scarlet, and you'll only get Iron Treads and Violet.
That's it. Nice of them to rerun this, because I honestly thought they were just going to, like, die and...
I mean, the Great Tusk and Iron Tread ones, I could see them letting die, because it's not the biggest loss in the world. They could just go, oh, well, that didn't work. We'll maybe run it again sometime in the future. They've had to rerun them before because they had a similar issue with Iron Leaves and Walking Wake, didn't they? Where some people just couldn't get them. No, it was they could get them, but without updating the game, which meant they got the bad egg. Instead.
Yes.
so they reran those. They're now rerunning these as well. Good. Glad that they fixed it. Glad that they pulled it and stopped everybody's games breaking. Let's hope we don't see any more of that in the future.
He is hoping. He is hoping they've identified the issue, they fixed the issue, and we're not going to hopefully see it again. But let's move on to the main piece of news around about 4 members of Team Korea's competitive Pokemon VGC team were disqualified from the Korean Pokemon Trainers Cup for trying to use the move Metronome in protest. So the protest was apparently against recent tournaments having frustrating issues, such as best-of-1 formats and shoddy communication from both organisers and the Pokemon Company, and apparently left players frustrated. So they decided to do a protest. And this protest was, well, we're just going to use Metronome. And their reasons behind this, one of the people that was banned, and this is a quote, "We were already locked for Pokemon Worlds Day 2, so not much was at stake." So the team, so they were already guaranteed to go there, and they were just getting the matches would just decide first through 4th place standings.
For that particular tournament that they were all a part of.
Yes. And it would be live streamed. So this was their plan. This is what they were going to do. And before they were able to take part in this protest, the players were disqualified from the finals via email on June the 3rd. They tried to get in contact. Eventually, the reason for disqualification was revealed, and this is a quote, "All locked-in Pokemon had learned one specific move," which was Metronome. Now, according to Pokemon Korea, this falls into prohibited acts that are either an act of causing harm to other participants or giving an offensive image, or other actions that the Nintendo Company Limited and the Pokemon Company and its subsidiaries deem inappropriate. So they're the other reasons that they've given.
Yeah. So basically, you tried to show us up and we don't like it.
Pretty much. So the Korean Pokemon Trainers Cup is essentially being cancelled altogether with no winners decided. And Team Korea have lost their Day 2 invites to the 2023 Pokemon World Championship. So,
yes. Reading through this is like really quite interesting because, so for those of you who don't know, the Korean players are on their own circuit as far as VGC is concerned. So we have the European circuit, the American circuit, Japan has their own one, and Korea has one as well. America and Europe have been running since last year, since the end of COVID, they've been running and trying to get everything back on schedule as per normal. Before COVID, the Korean events, you had 3 IRL events each year. And then you would earn points in those, and that's how you would build up towards finals. The reason for this protest is because they haven't had an in-person, in real life event since COVID. They haven't had one. All the
Wow.
tournaments they've been playing have been online only. As you say, they've been best of ones, which is not a good format for VGC.
Nope.
And do you remember, was it last week or the week before, we were talking about a tournament where people kept getting matched up against the same person over and over and over again?
Yeah.
They've had issue after issue after issue like that. The other problem as well is that the only cup that they're running, the only tournaments and stuff they're running within Korea are the Trainers Cup, which doesn't have a juniors or a seniors division. It's masters only, which means that no Korean under the age of 18 can compete at Worlds. It's ridiculous. So these are kind of the things they're protesting, and we've got a specific quote here from Nash, who is one of the players who was disqualified. So the 4 decided to go on Metronome Battle to protest against all these issues within our community. No IRL events, constant problems in the tour system, disregarding younger divisions, absurd compensation for the problems they caused. So that was the other thing. So this bit gets a little bit confusing. They basically, I'll just read it for verbatim. So after the rematch, people were getting rematched for the same person over and over and over again. Pokemon Korea decided that this tour is invalid and that top 16 from this tour will get unqualified. People who went top 16 here demanded compensation. Naturally, you were supposed to be like going to Worlds. And Pokemon Korea decided to give them an invite to next year's Trainer Cup. This is basically just nothing since reaching Trainers Cup was just getting 1,600 in Global Challenge. Nothing even close to top cutting it. So remember we were saying over and over again, it's like, the Pokemon company doesn't communicate with their players, and whenever they make a mistake, they don't make up for it properly.
Mm-hmm.
That feels very much like what has happened here. And all 4 players who reached the finals got together, had the same issue with the company, and went, we've all qualified. We're all going to day 2, which, if you don't know what that means to go to day 2, it means you don't have to go through qualifications of Worlds. You don't have to enter the big pool of players and get through day 1. You've automatically qualified for day 2. It's a huge step up. They've all turned around and went, let's just make it a joke. If we have to do this and we have to live stream it, let's make it a joke, because that's what it is. It has been a joke, and we should show the world it. And instead of accepting that, or changing their own ways, Pokemon just went, nope, bye. You don't get to show us up. That's not how this works.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting, knowing that this was going to be live streamed. Like, of course, they were always going to go, yeah, this isn't, we're not going ahead of this because you are bringing this competition and the company into disrepute by doing this, and you're making a mockery of it. I'm not agreeing with the company at all, by the way. Like, once they saw these, first of all, it should never have gotten this far. Okay, the issues that we've spoken about in previous podcasts, like episodes, they should have been addressed. The company should have resolved these issues, fairly compensated the players, and honestly, the compensation that you mentioned is an absolute joke. Like, you're going to go to you're guaranteed to go to a tournament next year that you were probably 99% likely to go to anyway, because the bar of entry was so low. And once they've seen these teams, because you have to submit your teams in advance, don't you? So they've seen the teams, they've gone, okay, they're all running metronome. Obviously something is off here. And instead of doing the what I would say is the correct thing and reach out to the players and just go, we've noticed
what's
this.
going
Can you
on here?
just explain it, please? And then, okay, this is the reason why. We get it. And then putting in the correct measures of, okay, we're sorry it's gotten this far. First and foremost, please don't do this. We can assure you that you're heard, you understood, and we're going to resolve it by doing the following things. Please resubmit your teams in the next 24 hours, whatever it might be, and let's move on past it. Instead of doing that, which would feel like, okay, we're listening to the players, we've addressed the issue, we're going to improve. It's almost like they've just thrown the toys out the pram. Oh, well, they can't do that. No, these little people can't do that. We can't have them causing issues for our company, which, let's be honest with you, wouldn't even exist without these types of players.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely infuriating that, as always, like, the company takes the wrong things away from an issue.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think the fact is they've now not learned their lesson. They've now not gone, somebody wanted to protest. We should probably look at this. They've gone, somebody wanted to protest. We should deal with it. And that's not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sucks to have, obviously, players of really high caliber just removed from the tournaments, from Worlds, to have your invite from Worlds revoked.
Yeah, that's massive. Just to I guess play a little bit of like devil's advocate for the company. I can understand why they've taken such a strong approach and just gone, nope, flat out, like, if you protest, like, done and dusted. Like, I don't agree with that, by the way. Like, I believe, you should be allowed to protest, and that is one of the ways that you can implement improvements and change in the world to make it a better place. I'm a firm believer to your right to protest. But as a company, I get why they've done it, because, well, if everyone just starts protesting at the tiniest little issue, potentially at the tiniest little issue, we open ourselves up to competitions falling apart. Could you imagine if people did it at Worlds and people have paid to go and it's on the live streams, and the amount of revenue the company gets from this and the footfall and the traffic, and it falls apart because of people protesting, even though people should be allowed to protest. I can understand why they've probably gone, we need to take a strong stance on this, even if it might lead to some backlash. Hopefully it shuts down future protests. I can understand why they've done it. I don't agree with it, but I can understand why they've done it.
See, I could understand them just going, right, we're just not playing it. If you guys want to do this, like, we understand that you're just treating it as a joke. We're just not do it. You all come forth.
Yeah.
And that's the ideal outcome, really. It's difficult to say, because you're right, like, they can't allow people to make a mockery of the game. But you're talking about players who have had 10 games to qualify for the World, and that's all they've had available to them, because that's all that's been run all year. These are some of the best players in the world, and they're being treated like they're nothing.
And let's be honest with you, like any company, this isn't just Pokemon, like any company, without its fan base, its consumers, its customers, it dies a death. It goes away. And you can only push people so far. And the Pokemon company gets away with a lot more than I think other companies might get away with. But there's always a tipping point. There's always a balance where people just go, no, I'm done. And for these 4 players, this might be it. They might be,
just walk away now.
Yeah, and they just go, you know what? We tried to protest in a way that
did no harm.
Did no harm, and let's be honest with you, probably brought a bit of humor because
And
they
the thing
might have
is,
looked at it from.
I'd have watched it. I can almost guarantee you that stream would have popped off.
Yeah, agreed. Like for professional VGC players, they're all trying to
doing
win
a metronome battle. Let's go.
Yeah. And instead of doing the right thing, they've gone, let's do it this way. And those trainers now might be going, okay, we wanted to protest and we wanted to do it in a funny way that didn't impact on anything, but would draw attention because, oh, why are these VGC players using metronome? Oh, well, this is the reason why. Oh, okay, right. And they're doing it in a humorous way, probably thinking, well, no harm can come of it. We're not intentionally throwing. We're just trying to bring light. We're just trying to bring light to an issue in a light-hearted way, which I think is always a good way to do it. Because then
there's another method. They could have just loaded up with like tail whip, and then just run down the clock for every single turn.
Oh,
and you just wasted everybody's time. Perfectly valid. But instead they went, no, let's do it a funny way. Let's do it one that's still entertaining to watch. Will it be the strategy and heavy thinking game that everybody's looking forward to? No. But that's not what we want to do. We want to make a point. And do you think their point has been made louder because the Pokemon company has reacted this way?
I think it's hard to say because of how close we are to it happening.
Yeah, valid.
I think it's going to be interesting to see this play out. It's going to be interesting to see whether it would because ultimately I kind of feel like this will push one of two ways. It will either go, people just going, I'm not risking losing, all the time and effort I've put in. I'm not even going to protest. I'm just going to keep my head down and put up with whatever's going on. Or it can flip the other way and players throughout the world in the different competitions could go, no, hold on, this isn't right. And you could have multiple players, multiple teams in multiple regions also kicking off. I think it's going to go one of the two ways. And this is something that I don't know enough about it to say which way it is likely to go, but I am interested to know which way it will go.
Yeah, we're gonna watch this space basically.
Yeah. And just see what happens. But the great thing is, if people start, it's one of the great things about social media and all that is that if more people come forward and go, you know what, this isn't right, I'm also going to protest, it will just start to roll and cannonball, and people will spread it, and then who knows, we will see. The fact that it's happened once and it's already made a couple of news sites, the more it happens, the more likely it is to build.
But we will keep you updated with all the latest news on this story, so be sure to subscribe. There you go.
Very nice. I like that. That's a nice little plug there. We've had a question courtesy of a regular listener, Luis, who has asked if you could select an underrated Pokemon and turn it into a ride Pokemon, what would it be?
Okay, so I have an answer to this, and I had one quite quickly. I think it should be Ice Cube or Delibird. And I think you should be able to sled on them.
Oh, okay,
I think you should be able to go from the top of a mountain and sled down on them. Similar to what we do on Koraidon Miraidon on the downhill slope.
Yeah.
That should be a ride mechanic, and you should be able to ride on the back of these two awesome penguins.
I like that. You know what I like about the SQ one is I feel like if they did it right, there could be like You slide down, it's just normal, but if you slide down and it bumps its head on something...
It gets faster.
I was going to say, its ice breaks and then panics and runs around and tries to...
Oh, right. No, see, I was thinking if you use Ice Cube, it's got a big ice head, so you go down really slowly, so you need to hit something for it to speed up.
Oh, I like that as well. So, I do have one question. Delibird's a penguin? Is that a thing?
Of course Delibird's a penguin. It's a Santa penguin.
I've never thought about it. I've never thought about its design. I just kind of gone, oh, it's a bird with a sack.
It's an ice bird.
Is it? A penguin? I've just never clocked. I've never thought about it.
What kind of penguin is it? It's the one with the funny eyelashes.
Oh, so it is. Oh, yeah. I know which one you're on about now. Yep. It is officially a penguin. I just can't believe I've never cottoned on. So I've got a couple of ideas here, and I'm just going to cover two of them. Now, when Lewis asked this question, I thought he meant a Pokemon that could do all the ride forms, very much like Rhydon. So I chose two Pokemon. The strange one is Smeargle. It's a Pokemon that doesn't get any love, and yet it has a really interesting gimmick in terms of it can sketch moves. So it can learn a lot of different moves. So it could learn cut. It could like let's go mechanics in terms of here's with Smeargle. It watches somebody use cut. It can suddenly use cut. So that's one way you can do it. And the other one that I would love to see is a bit like people are like some people complain that we haven't had more evolutions. And I subscribe to that. I would like to see more evolutions. But another Pokemon that I feel like should be getting more love is Rotom because of its forms. We've had several forms. But I feel like there could be more forms that implement ride mechanics of some kind.
We get a bunch of them in the anime and stuff like that as well. We get like drone Rotom and stuff like that now. Exactly.
So could you imagine if you could you've got a car and you put your Rotom into it. Oh, you've got a plane, you put your Rotom into it. And that's how you navigate.
You did have, to be fair, in Sword and Shield, the Rotom bike was effectively all of your HMs.
Good point, yes, because it could go over the water. What else could it do? Could it do anything else?
Not really. It could just go over
it's
water.
That was about it I wanted. But you
didn't have to do much. There was a taxi for everything else.
There was. So there, and the last one is Ditto because it can just transform into anything.
But of course.
But yeah, so that'd be quite interesting to just see a Ditto. But if you've got a comment or question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, by leaving it on our Discord channel, by using the hashtag goldenrodpod on Twitter, and all that information is in the description down below. So you don't need to get a pen and paper and jot it down. But let's move on to the big new addition to this podcast, which is kind of called Devil's Advocate, but it makes sense to be Giratina's advocate, right? But it just doesn't roll off the tongue. Maybe over time it will.
Yeah. Give us better suggestions in comments and email us and stuff.
And give us ideas about what you'd like us to debate. So the way this is going to work, we just need to preface this. So this week we're discussing, is Generation 2 overrated? Now, the way it's going to work is one of us each week will take one side of the argument and the other person will take the other side of the argument. That doesn't necessarily mean that person believes that statement or is on board with that statement, but this Devil's Advocate, they have to fight for that. And of course, you have to let us know in the comment section down below on YouTube, or you can just email us and all that stuff to let us know who you think won. But this week, is Generation 2 overrated? Now, Connor, you are arguing for the side that it is overrated, correct?
Yep. I'm so thrilled to be arguing that my favorite generation is overrated. Let's go.
And I'm arguing that it's not overrated.
So I suppose I got to start this, right?
I would argue you start first, yes.
Okay. Let's face facts, okay? Everybody thinks that Gen 2 is the best generation, and it's not. Gen 2 isn't even the best Johto. Johto was done better in Generation 4, and I don't care how you want to say, well, actually, it's still Johto, so that's Gen 2. It's not. Generation 2 means the second generation of games, which is Gold and Silver and Crystal, all right? They're not good. They're not as good as everybody makes them out to be. The obvious go-to is the fact that, the level curve is garbage. Absolutely garbage. Yes, it's fun that they try and allow you to do like 3 different gyms all at the same time, but all that really means is that you fight one gym and the next 2 are really easy, and you can't catch any decent Pokemon around any decent level. Grinding takes forever. And let's think about it as well. What's the other thing people say is great about Generation 2? Kanto. Do you know where Kanto is better? Generation 1. Or Generation 3 in Fire Red Leaf Green. If you want to play through Kanto, go play through Kanto. Not this cut down version of it where we don't even get a proper not Ilex Forest. What's the other one?
Viridian.
Viridian Forest. You don't even get a proper Viridian Forest. It's just not there. The story is all out of line. The gym leaders are supposed to be really powerful, but none of them actually are by the time you get there. By the time you actually set foot in Kanto, we're talking about the level curve. The level curve goes off the wall once you get to Kanto because everything's still level 5 for some stupid reason, even though this is post-game. Sure, great. And then what? You go through all of that and you face Red. Ooh, Red, the best. Oh, it's the best fight ever. It's so good. It's not that great. He just grinds. He's just got really high level Pokemon. It's not a hard fight. He hasn't got really good strategies. It's just high level, which means all you've got to do is grind for it, and that's not fun. What's the worst part about gaming? What's the worst part about Pokemon? Grinding. Everybody would agree. So the Red fight is stupid. Kanto, go play Fire Red Leaf Green. Go play Red and Blue. Let's see what else. Chikorita sucks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, no. Hear me out. Chikorita sucks in Gold and Silver. Chikorita was introduced in this game and was shafted from the off. Like, even Charmander, who probably is the worst pick in Kanto, was the best design. How are you going to take the worst design Pokemon and make them the worst Pokemon for that game? Let's think what else. Breeding takes way too long. Day-night cycle sounds cool until you realize that you're playing on a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance and it's in the dark and the screen doesn't glow and I can't see anything. And friendship takes way too long and there's no way of measuring it. There you go. Your turn.
Okay, right. I'm gonna respond to each of your arguments. I'm gonna break them down in a rational way, and then I'm gonna add my own. So the low levels that you mentioned, you get to you complete the first 4 gyms, and then gyms 5, 6, and 7 you can take in any order. If anything, I would argue that that's an evolution to Pokemon, and it's proto Gen 9 before Gen 9 was a thing. It's the perfect sequel. They were like, how do we change? How do we adapt? How do we improve? And the way you do that is to go, okay, let's make this game more your story, your individual story, and you can choose which way to go. But
whichever way you pick, you have a terrible story that follows up after it. The first choice is the only one that matters. After that, it sucks.
But that's only if you decide to go ham and just completely over level. Like, I still maintain that, like, Jasmine is a difficult trainer to take on because Steelix is such a busted mon. And the next gym in terms of I'm trying to remember it's Price and Chuck. And Chuck. But the great thing about that is you can just explore. You don't have to commit to taking on any one of them. It opens up the world and you get to catch your mons. And the reason the level cap isn't so high at that point is because you might get to that point. You suddenly have this world open up and go, I'm going to rejig my team. I'm going to go out and catch all these different mons. You don't want them to be over leveled.
To what? What do you get to rejig them to? What do you get to go catch? Ben, what cool Johto Pokemon do you get to catch pre-post game? What cool Murkrow? Can't have it. Slugma? Can't have it. Skarmory? Can't have it. Tyranitar? You can't have it. You can't have any of the cool Johto Pokemon pre-post game. And they know this because even the gym leaders suck. Your ace for the first gym is Pidgeotto. Your ace for the second gym is Scyther. The guy has a Metapod, a Kakuna, and a Scyther in a game with freaking Heracross. Miltank, sure, I'll give you Miltank, right? Miltank's a bit of a boss. But she still uses a Clefairy because we couldn't get another decent normal type. Couldn't give her Dunsparce. Dunsparce has to say a secret.
But what we have to remember is this is a game
Chuck uses Poliwrath. Chuck uses Poliwrath.
Yes.
Even Jasmine uses a Magneton. No, even Jasmine uses Magnemite, and an evolution to a Kanto Pokemon. Because there's no decent additions in Generation 2 that come before pre-post game.
But this is the thing, though. Generation 1, a lot of the Pokemon were the same. Brock uses 2 rock and ground types. Misty uses pure water. Surge uses pure electric. Erika predominantly uses grass and poison with the exception with 1 grass type and Tangler. Like, they're all the same typings. It's rather boring. Whereas Johto went, how can we improve on these mechanics? And so, for example, Bugsy, like, yes, uses Metapod, which is just bug, then also a bug and poison, and a bug and flying. And then normal different, because normal is really only normal. But then when you get to Chuck and he goes, oh, it's not just fighting Pokemon you got to deal with, it's also a water type to give me some diversity.
And he utilizes those different typings so well, doesn't he? Because the movesets are so well built to utilize those different... No. Go on. Tell me all the flying type moves Scyther has.
Probably Air Cutter.
No, it doesn't.
Probably it's nothing. It has nothing. Nothing.
It's got Fury Cutter. Fury Cutter.
Right.
That's what it uses. That's all it uses.
But what I like about this game is the fact that it starts off quite easy. Hence why the first gym leader is so simple to beat. But that's okay because it is aimed at children who are coming into this, but maybe for the first time, and you have to build them up and slowly ramp up the difficulty. And as always, the 3 starters, there is basically an easy, a medium, and a hard, just like there was in Generation 1. And you get that in Generation 2. Chikorita is the difficult one because it is weak to the first 2 gym leaders. And then Cyndaquil is medium because he has an advantage over one of them, and Totodile's neutral. And moving on, because obviously we do have time, let's move on to Kanto is overrated. Okay?
The Kanto edition is overrated.
Okay, yes. Okay. Now, I couldn't disagree with you more. This is a sequel before sequels were a thing. Like, the surprise of, I've completed this game, let's move on. But oh no, you get to go and re-experience the game that made you fall in love with Pokemon. And you not only get to explore it, but several years have passed, and you get to see how that has changed, how Misty looks older. Cinnabar Island is now under a volcano. Team Rocket is nowhere to be seen. Like, things have evolved. Much like Black and White 2 went, let's do a sequel. And, Gen 2 did that first. They did it years ago. And the fact that they're able to fit two games, let's not forget that. They fit 2 games onto 1 cartridge, and that is value for money. Because, like, as a child and you had to persuade your parents to buy you a game, could you imagine knowing, oh, no, it's not 1 game, it's 2. It's 2 games.
Well, hang on. You can't say it's a surprise and say that you're getting value for money because you know you're getting 2 games. That argument doesn't hold up.
It depends on which one of the 2 you are.
Well, no, you can't have both. That's not how that works.
Fine. I will say that the surprise, the wow factor of doing that is the thing that's amazing about this game.
Is it that big of a surprise though? Because you go to Kanto when you go to the Pokemon League. And instead of getting a whole new Pokemon League with a whole new bunch of trainers, we're forced to face the same idiots we had last time. Oh, except for one of them's been kicked out and replaced with Koga, who's only a gym leader. Great, Karen. Karen's an addition. Karen's cool. I'll give you Karen. But do you know who the Elite Four, who the master of the Elite Four is? Lance, the guy who got busted by both Blue and Red in the last game. He's a second-hand Elite Four member. Like, he doesn't belong there. He's an awful champion.
Okay, I will grant that he could be a bit stronger, but, like, yes, Karen is now in the Elite Four and they've booted someone else. That's fine. Like, the two of the trainers have changed in Koga and Karen, but that's progress.
And Will's there instead of Lorelei.
Well, there you go. We've got 3 brand new Elite Four members. Things have changed, but not completely changed because it's only been 3 years. So things will naturally change. They don't want to throw everything out. They just want to change little elements to show that the world has evolved. It is lived in. Like, you weren't in the game for 3 years, but things have progressed. And if we're talking about the
There's barely any
factor,
victory road. There's barely any victory road.
Good, because we're sick and tired of Victory Road. Like, Victory Road's overrated.
By the second game.
Yeah,
by the second game, you're annoyed at Victory Road.
You've beaten the 8 gyms, and you just, at this point, you're like, I just want to beat the Elite Four.
So hang on, you're coming off the back of Red and Blue, where you could find Moltres in Victory Road, and you're like, yeah, no, that's an awful place. I don't ever want to go there.
But that's okay, because, like, what benefit would having Victory Road be exactly the same as Gen 1 have? You might as well just go, you know what, let's just glance over that, because they already did it in the previous game. We don't need to wait. This game values its players' time and goes, we don't want to waste people's time with that. Like, they're here to take on the Elite Four. Let's just let them take on the Elite Four. And the wow factor, if we're talking about the wow factor of this game, getting up to Mount Silver as a child and just walking up and going, that sprite looks familiar. That sprite looks very familiar. Oh, they turn around.
And says nothing.
Exactly. Because that's the player from Generation 1. He was the playable character that never spoke. It is you. To have that player speak breaks the illusion that it's not your character.
Because people ask you your name and you tell them.
Yeah, but you don't see that your character speak, do you? You never see the character actually talk.
You can answer yes, no.
Yeah, but as we've already agreed that, like, in previous podcasts, like, that doesn't make it, like, it doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't matter if it makes a difference. The point is that you speak, and the Red doesn't speak comes from this game, not the original game. This game altered Red's appearance to the rest of the world. Before this, we had Manga Red, and Manga Red is a badass.
Yeah, but the
Instead,
different continuity,
now we've got Mr. Silent, who just grinds all his Pokemon up to the highest level and claims that as victory.
Okay, but let's not take away from the wow factor of rocking up and being like, oh, it's Red. I'm being forced into a fight with some amazing music. And you're like, oh my lord, he has all the starters from Generation 1. He has Pikachu.
Oh yeah, because nobody's ever seen those before. And you know what? I want my final boss of this game to have all the Pokemon I've seen from the last game. That's what I want.
But that makes sense, because he journeyed through Kanto. He was a Kanto player. And he does have one Pokemon that isn't a Kanto Pokemon, and that's an Espeon, which makes sense because it comes from a Kanto Pokemon in Eevee. And, like, yes, we've seen Charizard. We've beaten it before, depending on who your starter was in Gen 1. We've beaten Blastoise before, depending on what your starter was, and the same with Venusaur.
And Snorlax.
And Snorlax. But this is the first time, and I don't think it's happened since, but I might be wrong, that you fight all 3. We've never had that before. Because they cycle. Your rival picks a Pokemon and then builds a team around that. Red was unlike this. It was the wow factor of, oh, he's got all 4 starters from Generation 1. This is a battle I am not geared up for. I am not prepared for. And yes, it is a high level, and yes, you could just grind. But I've done challenge videos before, and I know that the fun sometimes isn't about just wrecking shop. It's about, okay, how can I make this difficult for myself? And maybe I'm not going to grind to a high level. I'm going to try and take him on and beat him to prove I'm the best trainer, which is ultimately what Pokemon's about.
Okay, so when you go and watch a movie these days, right? And have you seen the new Super Mario movie?
I have, yeah.
What did you think of it? It's fine, right?
It's fine. We're not movie.
We're not movie reviewers,
okay,
but
right.
I do have a point off this, right?
It's great for children, but not for adults.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
but you know when they go, look, here's Donkey Kong. You remember Donkey Kong? You like Donkey Kong, right? Please clap. That's how this feels, right?
I disagree.
You can't turn around to me and be like, do you know what the best thing in Johto is? All the stuff that carried over from Kanto. Well, just play Kanto then.
Oh, but
there's lots of ways of playing Kanto.
No, like, which I could understand if this was just, it's a lazy sequel in terms of you going through Kanto again. This wasn't a lazy sequel. This took so many elements from Kanto, from Gen 1, and went, let's improve on them. And you've already mentioned them yourselves. breeding. It added the new mechanic of breeding. And while, yes, it could take too long, let's not forget, we got the introduction of baby Pokemon. Like,
oh, yeah, because
new
everybody
Pokemon.
loves baby Pokemon. Woo.
But this is them mixing it up and going, hold on, right. It's not just about getting Pokemon in the wild anymore. There are new and exciting ways to discover Pokemon. And the day-night cycle makes it feel like a real lived-in world, just like in real life. We have day, we have night. And like they could have just...
That thing that was so good that they removed it the very next generation.
We're not talking about the next generation, though, Conor. We're talking about this generation, okay? In this generation, it was amazing going through, like, build it like in cities when it's night and seeing that, oh, they've actually taken the time to add lights and change the color palette. And then the kicker, the amazing kicker was, hold on, I'm not getting Rattatas anymore in this first route. I'm getting Hootoots. Like, the Pokemon that you can get have changed, and it allows you to explore Johto a lot more and go, okay, so now not only do I need to do each route once, I now need to do it twice to build out this Pokedex and find all these new Pokemon. And the friendship mechanic that you've mentioned, like, again, it's a way that they improve on it. Okay, how else can we continue to develop and add to the Pokemon franchise? Friendship, and it's not just there for the sake of being there. You have moves like Return and Frustration that get a benefit from that, allowing you to, okay, I'm going to build a bond with my team, and that bond will allow them to get stronger and learn a really, really powerful move. And let's not stop there, actually. Let's talk about the addition of new HMs as well, constantly building on what came before in bigger and better ways. And one of the things that we've agreed in the past about Pokemon is the newer games, they've cut off a lot of that exploration. It is very much you go down a hallway, you battle a Pokemon or a trainer or a gym leader, you go down another hallway. It's very much the same old. Whereas this game allows you to explore. Like, oh, you suddenly get Whirlpool. I can go back to the Whirl Islands now. And you can continue to explore. And that's only increased by the post-game of, I can explore even more of this game and find more ways to fall in love with this game. And let's be honest, they didn't just recycle the story as well. Like, yes, we do have the eight gym badges, and we do have the Elite Four, okay? And that's something that is that good that it's been repeated multiple generations because it is a staple. It's what people remember. But the fact that, we get to see Team Rocket 3 years on and what's happening with Team Rocket. And
yeah, because we couldn't come up with a new evil team.
Well, we don't need to, because we're only like, a couple of miles west of the original area. It would make sense for Team Rocket to be in that geographical location. And let's not forget about Lance as well. Like, Lance plays an integral part of this story. How cool was that? Oh, this is that guy from the first generation, and he's here, and we're finally getting backstory to these characters. They're not just, oh, come into my gym, we're gonna fight, okay, a couple of lines of dialogue, see you later. Like, he's taken an integral part in the story. And you know what? Like, just to jump around a little bit, we got shinies as well. Like, they constantly implement. Like, we got male and female. We got shinies. The fact that, like, that Gyarados and finding the shiny Gyarados. There's a reason everyone talks about, red Gyarados, and it's famous because it was the first easy to obtain shiny that you would find. And then, you come back and Lance is there. And it's just constantly building all these moments of this is new, this is new, this is new. And they're not recycling things. So, for example, the ice path that you have to go through. And it's a new way to explore. It's like, okay, we've done caves. Let's do caves with a spin on it. And this time we've got, the ice that you have to slide on and the puzzles that are missing in the later games. But by the way, I've spoken a lot here, so I want to give you the opportunity to jump in with anything.
I'm just sat here silently not agreeing with you. I fully disagree. Yes, it added a whole bunch of stuff in. Yes, it was a huge step up from Red and Blue. But Gen 3 was a huge step up from this. Gen 4, even further of a step up. And it's almost like Gen 2 gets lorded over as the perfect sequel. And how can it be the perfect sequel if it's been constantly improved on since? And it has to come down to nostalgia. Because even a lot of the arguments you've made, as you say, it's, oh, well, the first time you stepped in Kanto. Oh, well, the first time you met Red. Oh, well, the first time you did this. It's like, okay. But from an objective point of view, that experience only happens once. And then you have to review the game as a game. And you still then come down to the fact that there's just not enough new Pokemon to experience. There's only 100 added. And as I say, most of them aren't even available to you most of the way through the game. So it's, and as I say, the level curve across the gyms, sure, there's post-game and stuff like that. But the actual gym challenge is not that challenging. The Elite Four is in their mid-40s. It's not a hard game because the actual breadth of the game is only designed to be half of a game. And it's difficult to turn around and say, the best generation, yeah, that one that was built as half a game.
So while you could argue that it is half a game, you can't deny that the quality of life and improved features that they brought, yes, they added on it in Generation 3, they added on it in Generation 4, but each generation, the improvements get less and less. And I'd argue that the one gap between generations where the improvements mattered the most were between Gen 1 and Gen 2. It set the scene. And yes, they might have removed some of those features like the day and night cycle, but that's Game Freak. They like to mix things up and change things, and they add things and take things away because they constantly want to keep us surprised and excited for features. And we'll all go absolutely crazy when Gen 10 rolls around and it brings back the day and night cycle. And there's a reason why, because it's a great feature that we've had, and they've constantly improved and added to Pokemon. And it's so evident in this game of it isn't a lazy sequel.
Okay. What's the story of Generation 2?
So young boy gets a Pokemon, decides to take on the 8 gyms, and then suddenly out of nowhere Team Rocket show up. And he has to deal with Team Rocket. And then he decides, okay, right, I'm going to, take on the Elite Four. But under all that...
No. What are Team Rocket doing?
Team Rocket want to take over the radio tower to broadcast signals to get Giovanni to return to bring Team Rocket back to its glory days.
Right. So...
The perfect story. Tale as old as time, that, Conor.
So the overarching story of Generation 2 is that a team that has already been defeated are trying to rebuild. A team that has already been smashed to smithereens, we're just picking up the leftovers and throwing them in the trash. So you're a litter picker. That's what you are. You're basically doing community service this entire game. Right?
Okay.
You're getting the sloppy seconds of Red. That's what this game is. That's the main story.
So okay?
What's the main story of the first one? Team Rocket worked with Blaine to create the most powerful Pokemon in the world, and it escaped their lab, and they are doing everything within their power to hunt it down to overtake the world. What's the story of Generation 3? Archie and Maxie are using trying to capture the most powerful Pokemon in the world to flood it or turn it into constant land. What's the story of Generation 4? Cyrus wants to use his team to grab the gods of space, time, and the distortion world to create a brand new world. Generation 2 doesn't have a story.
And that's why it's perfect. Right, I'm sorry.
Whatever.
Right, every other generation, right, it is from Generation 3 onwards, it's 10-year-old boy or girl saves the world. Completely unrealistic. Generation 1, 10-year-old boy stops the mafia using the power of friendship and Pokemon. Unrealistic. Generation 2, no. Like, he's not dealing with the best of the best. He's not dealing with the cream of the crop. He is dealing with the outcasts, and therefore it is believable that he is able to go through the story. And let's not forget, he's got Lance helping him, okay? Lance is helping him. But you talk about what the story of Gen 2 is. Ultimately, it's not about the story. It's about It's not about like the destination. It's the journey. Okay. It's the exploration is the heart of this game, of being that little child, of being able to explore this. And I don't mean me as a little child. I mean the character exploring the world to their heart's content. And that is why the Pokemon are so spread out, because it wants to encourage and reward you for going out of your way to complete the Pokedex by exploring areas that are off the beaten path. The issue with the later games, there is no point in exploring because all the Pokemon are just there on the same paths, unfortunately.
Now, I'm sorry, considering Ho-Oh was originally supposed to be in both games, it has nothing to do with the story. It's just there. Right? And Lugia wasn't even meant to be in these games. It was a movie exclusive Pokemon that got dragged over because it looked cool. The legendaries make no sense. And the dogs are the worst addition. Roaming Pokemon is horrendous and should have died with this generation. The fact that this generation added dogs alone means that it's overrated.
So, I'm sorry, but like, the legendaries, Zapdos, Articuno, Moltres, what purpose do they serve to the story? They don't. They're just there for the sake of it. And even
they're
Mewtwo
there for exploration. You're talking about, it's all about the journey. It's all about exploration. Well, what's better to find? What's better to find than legendaries at the end of these? Oh, you want to go off the beaten path? Let's go to this power plant and make our way through it and find Zapdos. Oh, let's go off the beaten path and go to the islands. I forget what the islands are called. But yeah, and then we'll do a strength puzzle and then we'll find Articuno. Oh, we've gone to the Elite Four now. We're on our way through Victory Road. Do you know what? Let's go off the beaten path even now and find a legendary Pokemon. The dogs, you walk in, they go, run away.
But that's why I admit that's what's great, because in the originals, yeah, you explore, you find these Pokemon, and then you battle them. Whereas this, they went, okay, well, we've already done that. How do we change this? How do we mix this up and keep it fresh?
How do we make it more annoying?
You find the Pokemon. It's only annoying if you can't figure out the mechanics that you need. It's dead simple. It's about, okay, these are now roaming around, and you need to figure out a strategy to catch them. And that means that you might have to get Pokemon that you haven't been using so far. Pokemon with mean loop, Pokemon that can
so they can just use Roar against you.
Yeah, but that's only if you're higher level. If you're at lower level, if you're a higher level, mean Luke, sorted, and then slowly whittle them down and catch them. And let's be honest with you, like Gen 1, Moltres, terrible design. Zapdos, a pretty good design for the day, and the same with Articuno, pretty good. But all three of them, how they look were improved with Pokemon Sword and Shield with the DLC, okay? Because honestly, the original designs weren't that great, especially the sprites. There's a reason Ho-Oh and Lugia haven't been changed. They haven't been adapted because their designs are so perfect. And that's exactly why they dragged them into this game, because of how good they look, how fantastic they look. And the fact that they mix up like Lugia, okay, right, let's add a secondary typing. It's one of the great things about this game is they don't just bring in a load of Pokemon and go, okay, let's just give them all grass and poison typing. Oh, let's just give them pure normal typing. They mix
let's give Lugia the psychic typing because, that it's strong. It's a strong Pokemon and therefore it should be psychic. Despite the fact it's a water dragon, let's give it flying psychic because psychic is strong.
But I'm pretty sure
you can't sit there and say that the Gen 1 designs suck, but Ho-Oh's great, because Ho-Oh's a Gen 1 design, good sir.
Yeah, no, but I think both of them are Gen 1 designs, aren't they?
No, Lugia was designed specifically for the movie.
Okay. But, like, yes, yeah, I will agree, it was a Gen 1 design, okay? But it was head and tails above the other flying bird Pokemon, which is why they went, okay, right, we can't lower the standards of this Pokemon by inserting it next to Moltres of all Pokemon.
It can't sit next to the other chicken.
Hold on, Ho-Oh is majestic. Ho-Oh is not a thingy. But the fact that you have to dig around
overgrown
and find
turkey
wow,
that has been fallen into a pot of Skittles.
Can't say remove your hateful words. But let's talk about the one thing that everyone loves about this, okay? The one thing, like whenever you talk to people about the later gens and, you know, your rivals, they always complain, oh, the rivals are boring, the rivals aren't exciting, the rivals are just, let's be friends, let's go on an adventure together. The best rival
is blue.
Is not blue, believe it or not. He's second best, but top is what is his name? Silver?
He's that good. He's that good. You forgot his name.
Call him whatever you want, because you can call him whatever you want.
Silver.
It's Silver. Yeah, like this guy who, like, you know, he is there straight from the start. Like, you, before you even go into the professor's lab, it's right, who's this person here? And he gives you that attitude, and you get to see, like, this character arc. You know, we talk about trainers and Pokemon characters where they're just static. They don't change over time. They're just the same person at the start of the journey as the end, and there's no character arc. Silver has an amazing character arc that you slowly over time see him go from someone who was angry at his dad and just wants to destroy Team Rocket because he thinks it might just bring him a little bit of peace and relief from his childhood. And through your interactions, he slowly warms to you and his Pokemon and starts to realize, it's not all about strength. That won't get me what I want. And he starts to build that friendship. There is hints at the end of the final battle in Mount Moon that, you know what? I understand now. Like, I get why friendship is so important in Pokemon. And to see a rival go through quite possibly the greatest character arc and character growth in the entire Pokemon series is amazing.
All right, closing arguments just off the back of that statement.
Okay.
Gen 2 is overrated because anything it does good, Gen 5 does better.
Okay.
Everything, without fail. Everything we have mentioned, Gen 5 does better.
Okay. My closing argument is that Gen 2 isn't overrated. This is the generation that solidified Pokemon as a worldwide franchise and continued its continued success for the next, 7 generations after this, because it brought so much improvement, quality of life improvements, changes and updates that were very much needed, and more. They just made a sequel and went, let's make it bigger, better, bolder, and it's a reason it's held up to such a high standard even today.
Who do you think won?
Let us know in the comments down below on YouTube or, on social media by sending us an email. We would love to know.
I got very heated.
And very, I wouldn't say, heated,
loud.
but in a friendly way. I got loud as well. Loud as well. We are friends. I just need to point this out. And let's be honest with you. There are more than likely somewhere in the middle. There is like the perfect argument there in terms of.
Oh yeah, like I don't agree with most of what I said. No. Understand that. That's the point of the format.
Yeah, exactly.
I love Generation 2. I think it's amazing.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that.
I love Generation 2 so much.
Yes. It is so good. But we can acknowledge your criticisms, but like oh, it's like, it's really annoying because those games are like 9 out of 10. And if they just fixed a couple of issues, they would be 10 out of 10 games.
Again, I do stand by the fact, though, that it's not the way to play Johto.
I agree.
Heart Gold, Soul Silver are the way to play Johto.
Yes, agree. Completely agree with that. Conor, are you up for playing a game?
Yeah.
Perfect. In front of me, I have 3 Pokemon with 3 Pokedex entries each. But can Conor spot the fake entry? We have 3 Pokemon, all hailing from Generation 2.
Oh.
The Johto region. And we're starting this week with Hoothoot. So, entry number 1. Hoothoot has an internal organ that senses and tracks the Earth's rotation. Using this special organ, this Pokemon begins hooting at precisely the same time every day. Entry number 2. Hoothoot spends almost every day hidden in its nest. It only leaves during the night. And entry number 3. Every day it tilts its head in the same rhythm, A long time ago, people raised these Pokemon to serve as clocks.
That's amazing. Does that make any sense, though? Okay, so I'm leaning towards the second one because it's very simplistic. But that third one sounds... Oh, I'm going to go with the second one.
You're correct. Well done. It is the second one. Well done. Well done.
I almost guessed myself out of it.
I was hoping that you'd go, okay, number 2 is safe, but it's safe because it's simplistic and safe, whereas the other 2 are so out there that one of them must be fake. I thought you'd get into a 50-50
I listened to the first one. I was like, there's no way you came up with that.
Okay.
It's one of those, it's so unbelievable that it must be true.
Yes, I get that.
Yeah.
The second Pokemon is Sentret. Entry number 1. It is a cautious Pokemon. It spends long periods of time aloft its tail, scouting its surroundings for signs of danger. Entry number 2. Timid by nature, it avoids other Pokemon at any cost. And the final entry. When Sentret sleeps, it does so while another stands guard. The sentry wakes the others at the first sign of danger. When this Pokemon becomes separated from its pack, it becomes incapable of sleep due to fear.
Now, have you done a super long one to make me think it's a Ruby and Sapphire one? I'm going to go with number 2 again.
Correct. Number 2 was, in fact, the correct one. And what's really annoying is I got 2 entries, wrote out a third one, and then thought, I better check. I'd pretty much written one of the Pokedex entries just...
It's the worst, isn't it?
I'm just like, oh, okay, right. I spent a good 5 minutes writing that up, and it's pretty much word for word a Pokedex entry that currently exists. So, Connor, well done. You've got 2 out of 2 so far, but can you bring it home? Can you get the perfect 3? Let's find out. So the final Pokemon is Ledibur. Entry number 1. Ledibur communicate using a fluid that they secrete from where the legs join the body. They are said to convey feelings to others by altering the fluid's scent. Entry number 2. When the weather turns cold, lots of ladybird gather from everywhere to cluster and keep each other warm. And the final Pokedex entry. Ladybirds seek companionship and can only be found alone if they have been separated from their swarm.
So this is... Okay, I'm going to guess number 2. And the reason I'm going to guess number 2 is because for the other 2, you said Ledibur. And for that one, you said Ladybur, which feels like you've written it how you thought it and put an A in there and you've read it that way. So that's the one I'm going with.
I can understand why you did that. I'm ever so sorry. It's not. It's number 3. It's the third one. It's the third one, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Don't read into how we pronounce Pokemon names, because what was the one last week that I just couldn't pronounce?
Oh, I can't even remember.
I'm useless at Pokemon names are just not what I can. Sometimes I just pronounce them completely wrong. So 2 out of 3, good effort. Well done, Conor. Yeah, it's okay. Let's move on to another comment. A question that we've had this week, courtesy of Tony over on YouTube. What's a trip or vacation you've enjoyed with your family and or friends?
So this was... you had to specify family or friends there, because my immediate one was going to be, hey, do you remember that time I went to Japan? I talk about it a lot. But I didn't go with my family. I went with my school. So family, I would say we went to Corfu.
Yeah.
And it was really weird. So it was technically my mom and my stepdad's honeymoon. And they took all the kids and their mates.
Right.
away on this honeymoon with them. And we got to do a whole bunch of different stuff. So we went out to a zoo, which was great. But one of my favorite experiences from it was I got to go on we did a glass bottom boat, which wasn't that great because it was full of a bunch of people trying to huddle around this one little panel of glass. So you couldn't actually see anything. And then you were supposed to go to a beach and do a barbecue, but the beach was just hard stone and it was full of wasps and it was horrible. But the one good experience was I got to go in a submarine.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, no.
Wow.
So I got to go in a submarine, and I'm terrified of the ocean, but some of the stuff you see, and I got to see an angel shark swim underneath us, and that image has stuck with me for my entire life. So yeah, it's simply for the ability to go in a submarine, Corfu.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. I've not got anything really like that, to be quite honest with you. My family, we were brought up on, Haven holidays in Wales.
And Butlins. Yep.
Butlins. Well, we never went Butlins. It was always Haven, and it was always the sun tokens, like, collect X amount of tokens, you get the holiday for like £7.50 or something like ridiculously cheap.
None of this is sponsored, by the way.
No,
especially not the sun.
Definitely not the sun. No, I completely agree with you. But the holiday that I think stands out the most was about a month before COVID. Me and my family went to York. There was me, my wife, my daughter, my brother and his family, so the four of them, and then my mum, and we rented an Airbnb in the center of York. And being able to explore York is fantastic. It's beautiful. Like going down, I think it's called the Cobbles, which is like, loads of Harry Potter shops. And there's a shop that's Christmas all year round. And we went in February. So I walked in and the person behind the counter said Merry Christmas. And I froze and I didn't know what to do because I was like, wait, so like part of my brain just shut down. Like, wait, what? And I had to like, oh right, yeah, I'm in a Christmas shop. But just being able to explore York and like the cathedral, which is massive, and like the Airbnb that we stayed at, like we were on the top floor and it had one of those like it had a slanted roof that you could open the hatch on, so you could like pop your head out and just look all over York. And the reason why that the holiday like stands out, not just because it time with the family and stuff like that. I'm not a person that, like, some people just appreciate art and they love art and they go to galleries and they talk about it. Like, I've never been that person. I don't get it. But I'm a firm believer now that there is like one piece of art that will just resonate with you, because we went past an art shop and there was this beautiful like oil painting of a really dark beach with two people stood on the beach. You've got the white moon up there, and they're just holding a red love heart balloon. And I don't know what it was. Like, I was like, this is absolutely amazing. It was a lot of money that I was like, I could get this, but I can't warrant spending this much money on it.
Yeah.
But my wife surprised me with it for Christmas. Because I was just like, what is this big square looking thing that's flat? I just couldn't figure. I was like, what is this? I don't get what it is. And then Moles, my wife, had come away from it, tracked down the shop, managed to figure out what the painting was, got her sister-in-law to purchase it, so there was like no paper trail. It wasn't like there's no, and I got this, and just all these events, just like we were only there for I think 2 nights, so 3 days overall. And there was just so much fun and excitement. And it was absolutely just a great holiday. And it's a shame this question wasn't asked in 2 months' time, because I've got a trip to Rome coming up this month. And at the end of next month, I'm going to Disneyland Paris. So hopefully, Tony, ask this again in 2 months' time, see if my answers change.
Yeah, when I come back from my holiday in August, where I'm going to York.
What?
Yeah,
full circle.
But so I go every year with my uni mates. We get a big 15-bedroom Airbnb and just spend a week together out in big farmhouse.
Oh, that's just beautiful, lads. That's absolutely amazing. I'd love to do something like that. It'd be so much fun. And let me guess, it's just like video games, exploring, and takeaways.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely.
Except
perfect.
from no takeaways, because there's enough of us there. Someone can cook.
So someone can cook. That's absolutely brilliant. I love that. As always, if you got a comment or question, links are in the description down below. We want to hear from you, whether or not it's Pokemon related or not. Conor, what have you got coming up?
So, not my channel, but over on my friend Baker Bulbasaur's channel, we have started a collab series. We are doing a battle lock, which is a new format that we've kind of devised. We wanted to do a cage lock, but I'm not a fan of the cage lock format because I think the battles are way too swingy. I think being able to get perks and kill your opponent's Pokemon is a lot. Yeah. And it gets really heavy, and losing is a little bit too much. So the way we've done it is we've done a battle lock where if you win, you get 2 perks. You get either TMs or an item, and you get to pick 2. If you lose, you still get 1 of them. Your Pokemon don't die in the battles. They only die in the Nuzlocks. But the format of the battles keeps changing. So it's 3v3 singles, 3v3 doubles, 4v4 singles, 4v4 doubles. Oh. So you have to build teams differently depending on what gym you've just fought. It's been really interesting. It's a heavily edited down series. We do like 2 hours of recording, and then it becomes like 25-minute episodes. Oh, really, really fun.
Nice. What game are you playing? What games?
Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire.
Oh, quite possibly the best games. Okay, right. It's episode 1 live? I think
episode 1 is live. Episode 2 will be live almost exactly the same time this episode goes live. The episodes go live over on his channel.
Perfect. Right. Okay. Right. I know what I'm watching when I'm working from home tomorrow then, because I have missed some Conor content, so I'm looking forward to it. In terms of what I've got coming up, funnily enough, as tomorrow, as of recording this, myself, British Eagle, and Soul Christ, who I've done content with in the past, are doing a race. We're doing a versus in Pokemon Emerald Crest. Nice. For those that don't know what Emerald Crest is, it's basically Pokemon Emerald, but they've added Pokemon up through Generation 8, including Legends Arceus. In the game, you've got Megas, Primal Pokemon, a whole load of quality of life improvements, and a steep level curve. So we're racing to see who can beat the Elite Four and the champion in that game first. And what I'm really enjoying about it is that it just feels like the definitive way to play Emerald for me now, because it's added all these extra additions, quality of life improvements. Like you've got fairy types in there, you've got the physical and special split. You've got wild bosses. Like there are literally bosses in the overworld. And I remember the first time I played this, I was like, why is there a Scizor in the forest? And I walked into it, and suddenly I'm forced into a level 35 encounter that I just cannot win. It's a fantastic way to play this game, and it's got. I'd recommend, if you could play it, I'd recommend you play it as well, because it's got a built-in Nuzlocke feature. So in the past, it's like, have I had a Pokemon in this route? Like the game remembers. So if you get to a route and you've already caught a Pokemon there or failed to catch a Pokemon, it flat out refuses to let you throw balls.
Wow. Okay,
and if a Pokemon dies, it goes straight to your PC, so you don't even need to bother with it, and it gets grayed out, so you can't even pull it out the bottom. And the best thing about Emerald Crest is there's a there's story mode, which is the typical story that you experience, or there's a mode where you can choose where to start. So you can start on in Rustboro, you can start on at Slateport. Like you can basically choose where you start from, and you can choose which generation starters. Like there is so much under the hood of that game. It's just like the amount of time and love that's gone to it is absolutely fantastic.
Sounds like a good series.
Thank you very much. And that's the show for this week. If you've gotten this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? Conor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget, or on Twitter at CapFidget.
I'm Ben. You can find me as Professor Hoenn Gaming on YouTube and Professor Hoenn on Twitter. As for the Goldenrod Podcast, you can find us on all the usual platforms. Search for Goldenrod Podcast on YouTube or on your usual podcast app. Leave a like on YouTube or a 5-star review if you're listening as a podcast. We'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content.
See ya.